If bedtime gets harder, the more lovingly you try, your baby may not be resisting sleep. They may be overwhelmed. That sudden burst of energy at night can fool you. Bright eyes sometimes appear exactly when a baby is fading. The habit that quietly makes sleep harder often looks caring. It is starting too late, after the nervous system slips. Many parents wait for obvious sleepy signs before beginning, but by then, regulation may already be cracking underneath the surface. A baby can look playful and still be tipping toward overload. Kicking, squealing, and grabbing may hide rising stress inside. Then bedtime finally starts, and everything feels strangely harder. Feeding gets frantic, rocking stops working, and crying seems to multiply. That confusion hurts because your effort is real. You are trying to soothe, while your baby is losing organization fast. The hidden problem is not love, nursing, rocking, or holding. It is the timing and intensity wrapped around them nightly. Sleep comes easier when bedtime begins before unraveling, not after. That one shift changes the emotional climate of evening completely. Babies do not simply get tired and drift off. They move through a fragile window where regulation must stay intact. Inside that window, the brain asks a basic question. Does this still feel manageable, or do I need protection now? For a baby, protection can look surprisingly ordinary. It might be faster movements, louder fussing, or suddenly refusing eye contact. Parents often call that a second wind. Sometimes it is actually the body shouting, "I am too activated to settle." Tired and sleepy are not always the same state. An exhausted baby can be far less able to fall asleep. Adults know this feeling after travel, company, or noise. You are drained, yet your body refuses to soften down easily. Babies live much closer to that edge than adults. Their brains are unfinished, so regulation depends heavily on borrowed calm. Borrowed calm is what parents provide all day. Through voice, rhythm, touch, and pacing, you lend your steadiness for now. That is why bedtime is never only about sleep. It's about whether your baby feels safe enough to release. Safety does not mean silence or perfection. For babies, safety often means fewer surprises, slower transitions, and emotionally readable caregiving. Readable caregiving means your baby can predict your next move. The body relaxes when care feels patterned instead of abrupt. If evenings often feel rushed, your baby may sense that rush. A fast room can create a fast nervous system. Lights stay bright, voices stay animated, and little tasks keep stacking. Meanwhile, your baby is spending energy trying to process. The tricky part is that overload does not always look miserable. Sometimes it looks alert, busy, or suddenly extra social. Your baby might smile more right before melting down. Parents see sweetness, but the body may be running on fumes. That is especially true during evening family time. Everyone is finally home, and babies receive the biggest sensory load then. One more face, one more song, one more kiss can feel loving, yet even pleasant stimulation can tax an infant. Babies do not sort important input from unimportant input well. Everything arrives as sensation first, meaning comes much later developmentally. So a cheerful living room can still become too much. The nervous system cares about load, not only emotional intention. Baths show this perfectly. Some babies soften in warm water, while others get activated by brightness, handling, and temperature change. The bath itself may seem fine. The protest often erupts afterward, once the baby has no room left for processing. Feeding can work the same way near bedtime. A tired baby may nurse or bottle feed hard, then pull away. Parents often assume gas, hunger, or stubbornness. Sometimes the baby wants comfort desperately, but stimulation from feeding feels like more. That explains the painful push-pull many parents know. Your baby latches, unlatches, cries, and seems impossible to satisfy tonight. They are not confused about you. They are confused inside themselves, needing closeness while also struggling with too much input. This is where parents can change everything without changing everything. Instead of adding more soothing, begin protecting the transition earlier. Earlier does not mean forcing sleep before your baby is ready. It means noticing the first wobble, not the collapse. A wobble might be glazed eyes, quieter play, clumsier movements, or a sudden need for more contact with you nearby. It can also be the opposite. Some babies get louder, brighter, and sillier right before their regulation starts slipping away. That is why strict sleepy signs can mislead parents. Yawning and eye rubbing often appear after the easiest window passes. Once that window passes, your baby may still sleep eventually, but getting there usually requires more help and more tears. This is not about blaming yourself for hard nights. It is about seeing behavior sooner, before distress becomes the language. When babies are overwhelmed, crying is often the final signal. Parents only hear the alarm, not the quieter warnings beforehand. The quieter warnings matter because they are the moments you can help easiest. Regulation is gentler to protect, early, always. Imagine bedtime as a landing, not a shutdown. Landings need space, slower speed, and fewer last-minute surprises for babies. A calm bedtime routine works less like a performance and more like a dimmer switch. Everything gradually becomes smaller outside. Your movements slow down first, then your voice softens, then the room changes, then your baby has less to track. That order matters because babies feel your pace before understanding your plan. The nervous system reads speed as information first. If you are hurrying through pajamas, searching for lotion, and answering texts, your baby experiences a fragmented caregiving rhythm tonight. Fragmentation keeps the infant brain orienting outward. It cannot fully settle inward when new signals keep interrupting the pattern repeatedly. This is where predictability becomes emotional medicine. Repetition tells the body nothing important is about to happen except rest now. The same song, same chair, same dim light, same sequence can work wonders. Not magically, but biologically and emotionally together. Predictability lowers uncertainty. Lower uncertainty lowers vigilance. Lower vigilance makes sleep possible. That is the chain many exhausted parents miss. And yes, routines support parents too. Your body relaxes when you are no longer improvising every evening under pressure alone. Babies borrow from your state, not your intentions alone. A loving parent can still feel rushed, and babies notice that. This does not mean you must become perfectly calm. It means small shifts in pace can create disproportionate relief nightly. Even pausing before picking your baby up can help. Your slower inhale becomes part of the message their body reads. Babies are astonishingly sensitive to transitions. They notice how the room feels, how your hands move, and how quickly everything. That is why putting a baby down is not just mechanical. It is a nervous system event with emotional meaning. Some babies wake the second they touch the crib. Parents think they hate the crib, but often the transition jolted. Movement stopped, temperature shifted, pressure changed, and contact disappeared. That is a lot for an immature system to absorb suddenly. A baby who startles at transfer is not necessarily spoiled. They may simply need gentler transitions before separation feels tolerable. Gentler might mean warming the crib sheet, lowering more slowly, or keeping one steady hand on the chest briefly afterward. Those details matter because babies are pattern detectors from the start. They compare what was happening with what happens next. If the next moment feels different, the body alarms. Not because the crib is wrong, but because transition felt abrupt. Another hidden bedtime trap is treating fussiness like a puzzle to solve fast. Babies sometimes need containment, not constant changes. Switching positions, rooms, songs, and strategies every minute can increase uncertainty. Your baby keeps losing a pattern just forming underneath. Containment means enough steadiness for the body to organize. Same arms, same tone, same rhythm for a little longer tonight. That does not always stop crying instantly. Sometimes the change is subtler first, softer limbs, slower breaths, less frantic searching. Parents understandably chase the quickest visible result, but the deeper goal is not silence alone. It is nervous system settling. This difference changes how you interpret crying. Crying can mean protest, pain, fear, fatigue, frustration, or sensory overload in babies. At bedtime, the question is not only why is my baby crying, it is also what happened before crying tonight. That earlier story often reveals the answer. A busy evening, skipped wind down, long wake window, or abrupt handoff earlier. And sometimes the answer is you. Not because you caused harm, but because your stress changed the emotional texture nearby. Babies cannot name your tension. but they can feel mismatch. Smiling words with a strained body still register to them. This is why self-compassion belongs in sleep conversations. A dysregulated parent is not failing, they are carrying too much. Sometimes the best bedtime change is not another baby trick. It is reducing the pressure filling the room around bedtime. Lower the lights earlier. Turn down your own mental volume. End the search for the perfect routine before tonight arrives. Babies do better with a good enough pattern repeated kindly. They do not require a magical sequence to feel safe. What they do need is a slower slide into sleep, not a full-speed day ending abruptly in darkness alone. Think of the last hour before bed as brain care. Every sound, light, and interaction helps shape the landing tonight. Serve and return matters here too. When your baby signals and you respond clearly, the brain learns predictability and trust. That does not mean fixing every sound immediately. It means your responses feel understandable, attuned, and consistent enough to follow. A baby held calmly through fussiness is learning something profound. My feelings can get big and connection still remains here. That lesson becomes part of attachment. Attachment is not constant happiness. It is repeated repair, reassurance, and being understandable emotionally. Bedtime gives daily chances to build that pattern, not through perfection, but through enough safety that the body softens again. When your baby softens in your arms, oxytocin is part of the story. That bonding chemistry supports calming and connection. When evenings stay frantic too long, cortisol can stay higher. That stress chemistry is useful for survival, not surrender tonight. Hearing words like cortisol can sound scary. It should actually feel clarifying because behavior suddenly makes emotional sense to parents. Your baby is not dramatic, difficult, or plotting bedtime battles. Their body's communicating in the only language available today. Once parents see behavior as communication, nights often feel less personal. Frustration softens when meaning replaces mystery for tired adults. You stop asking, "Why is my baby doing this to me?" You start asking, "What is my baby telling me?" That question changes your posture, your voice, and your patience. And babies often respond to those changes almost immediately too. Sometimes the best answer is an earlier bedtime. Sometimes it is a shorter routine, less stimulation, or fewer caregivers nearby. Sometimes it is watching wake windows more closely. But sometimes it is simply noticing your baby needs quiet sooner daily. Not every baby shows overwhelmed the same way. One gets clingy, one goes wild, another turns away and shuts down. Turning away is especially misunderstood. Parents can think the baby is rejecting them, when often the baby is rejecting them. Looking away can be a brilliant self-protective move. Babies break eye contact when connection itself becomes too stimulating briefly. That does not mean stop connecting. It means soften the connection. Lower your face intensity, voice intensity, and movement intensity. You are not withdrawing love. You're translating love into a form your baby's nervous system can actually use tonight. This is why gentle bedtime routines often look almost boring. Boring is beautiful to a nervous system asking for less. Parents sometimes worry calm routines are not stimulating enough. Daytime grows the world bigger. Bedtime helps the world shrink again. Shrinking the world is not deprivation. It is how babies gather themselves after hours of taking everything in all day. The babies who seem to fight sleep hardest often need this most. Their alert systems are powerful, curious, and sensitive. Sensitive babies are not fragile in a bad way. They simply register more, which means evenings can fill faster up. These babies may need lower lights sooner, fewer transitions, and a more protected final hour than other babies their age. That does not mean you did wrong if bedtime is messy. It means your baby may need a narrower one way. Other babies can roll through noise and still crash happily. Yours may need more buffering before sleep can take over. When you understand that, comparison loses power. You stop measuring your baby against easier evenings happening in other houses nearby. You start building care around the baby you actually have. That is where confidence grows and sleep often follows too. Confidence matters more than parents realize. Babies feel hesitation in our bodies, especially during sensitive moments like bedtime and transfer. When you know what you are looking at, you move differently. Your steadiness becomes clearer. and your baby feels it. Even your voice changes when you understand behavior. It becomes less pleading, less rushed, and more emotionally anchored for them. Anchored does not mean stern. It means your baby hears, "I can help with this," instead of, "Oh no, here." That emotional signal is huge. Babies relax more easily with confidence than with frantic effort, even when effort looks loving. So what should bedtime feel like for your baby? Smaller, slower, dimmer, simpler, and more predictable than the hour before. Not silent, not rigid, not perfect, just easier to read, easier to trust, easier for an immature brain to follow. If you want one practical experiment, start bedtime 15 minutes earlier for several nights. Protect that time like it matters. Then reduce one layer of stimulation before the routine even begins. Maybe fewer lights, fewer voices, or fewer transitions tonight. Watch what changes, not only in sleep, but in your baby. Do their eyes soften sooner? Does feeding settle easier? Does crying begin later or not escalate as fast? Does transfer feel less explosive? Does bedtime feel less personal overall? Those are signs that the nervous system had more room. Sleep improves when the body arrives there less defended nightly. And if bedtime is still hard, that does not erase progress. Some babies need repetition before their body trusts change. Trust is built through patterns, not isolated evenings. One smoother night helps, but repeated smoother nights teach expectation over time. Expectation matters because babies sleep into what they predict. If bedtime usually feels tense, the body prepares for tension early. If bedtime usually feels gentle, the body prepares differently. That invisible shift is often the beginning of better sleep patterns. Better sleep is rarely one trick. It is a collection of small signals telling the brain nothing urgent is happening. You do not have to memorize neuroscience to use this. Just remember that tired babies still need emotional protection nightly. They need help stepping down, not crashing down. That is the difference between a bedtime routine and a bedtime rescue. Rescue begins after overwhelm. Routine begins before overwhelm. One asks the body to recover. The other helps prevent overload earlier. That is the bedtime habit worth changing first. Do less later by starting sooner, smaller, and more predictably each night. When parents make this shift, they often notice something tender. Their baby stops seeming difficult and starts seeming understandable instead. That emotional relief matters too. A parent who feels less confused can offer more calm, which helps the next night. So much of parenting changes when behavior has meaning. You stop fighting the symptom and start supporting the need underneath. And underneath many hard bedtimes is a baby asking for less input sooner. Not less love, just less stimulation earlier. Less brightness, less rushing, less switching, less performing bedtime, more quiet cues, more predictability, more room for softening at last. Your baby is not giving you a hard time at night. Your baby is having a hard time inside instead. When you hold that truth, your choices become gentler and clearer. Bedtime becomes less about winning and more about guiding. Guiding does not mean controlling every outcome. It means shaping the conditions where sleep can arrive with less resistance naturally. Some nights will still be messy. Babies are human, development changes quickly, and sleep is never a perfect staircase upward. But even on messy nights, understanding helps. You can protect connection, lower stimulation, and keep the story emotionally safe anyway. That is a powerful gift for a baby. Hard moments pass and the relationship still feels steady, readable, and warm. Over time, those repeated moments build more than sleep. They build trust in closeness, relief, and rhythms that return nightly. And that may be the deepest bedtime lesson. Sleep grows best where the body expects comfort, clarity, and manageable endings. So if bedtime has felt harder lately, try looking earlier. The real struggle may begin before the crib ever does. Notice the wobble. Protect the landing. Make the evening smaller before the tears asked you to. That is the shift. Not because your baby needs less of you, because your baby may need the end of day to feel gentler. And when the end of day feels gentler, sleep often stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like trust. That is what many exhausted parents are really seeking. Not a perfect sleeper, but a baby who can settle safely. You can help build that, one earlier, calmer evening at a time. That is hopeful, and it is human work. Tonight, your baby does not need a flawless performance. They need a softer runway home, and you can provide it.